So, I wanted to talk a little bit about social media and particularly about approaching social media as a sensitive person, or maybe as somebody who gets overwhelmed easily, or somebody who just doesn't like some of the things that happens on social media, and just kind of a few of my thoughts around these things. So, me personally, I've definitely gone through different experiences, like a lot of different experiences with social media. I used to be way more active on it. Right now, I don't consider myself particularly active. I can go into that a little later, but I think I've definitely learned over the past few years about myself that I am very energetically sensitive, just in terms of I can get overwhelmed at like information flooding in, which happens more and more, nowadays, and it's a little bit hard to avoid that when you're on social media in an active way. And I think also like being energetically sensitive is probably also part of being interested in astrology. So I think people that are into astrology, they can also be very energetically sensitive in terms of like they understand certain energetic maybe vibrations, if you want to call it that. And then social media is something that kind of can flood information into you, and it can be very overwhelming and overpowering for the sensitive person, right? Which can very much be somebody who is interested in astrology or something like that, because it's I think it's probably connected on some level, right? Being sensitive and being interested in astrology, right? So I think with social media, if you're aware that you're a sensitive person, I think what I would advise is that you do have to find a way to be mindful when it comes to how you actually interact and approach on social media, like how you approach social media, how you interact on social media, how you consume social media. So I know that from experience. I don't know why it took me so long, but I kind of realized over the years that I shouldn't post a lot on social media, because I can go haywire in terms of my posts quite easily. This includes even like online forums. Like if I'm constantly involving myself on an online platform, such as certain social medias or forums even, I can start to get overwhelmed in a way where I actually, like it actually gets reflected in my posts, let's say. So I can start to kind of get frazzled, and I can start to maybe talk about personal things and things like that in a way that I would rather not do on social media. I think there should be certain limits, and there should be certain ways you approach it in a more mindful way. So I think social media platforms can definitely be beneficial. I mean, I don't need to like go into all that, but like they can be beneficial just in terms of, if you're using them in a way where you're happy using them and you're actually contributing something that you want to contribute and you're having a positive experience. I don't think it should be this thing in society, like if you're not into social media, that you should be like ostracized for it. Like, why don't you have this account, or why don't you have these platforms? Because I think it's like some people are not drawn to it, and also some people can just be very overwhelmed by the constant flooding of information, like I said. So I don't think it should be this thing about you're weird because you're not on social media or something. I've seen both. I've been on both sides very much. I've been very active on certain social media platforms. I've gone through my different periods. I've gone through periods where I have been very active. I've had periods where I've deleted everything. Right now, I'm kind of in a period where I can see myself staying for a very long time. It's that I have profiles on some of these platforms, but I use them very mindfully nowadays, and that is just kind of my own, looking after my own energy. and also other people's energy, because I don't want to go on these platforms and start spewing information or spewing my thoughts or getting emotional, talking about personal things or something, because then it will flood into other people's energy as well, and that their consciousness is going to be now involved with my flooding that I'm adding to it, right? So I don't want to add to that to myself or for other people. So like right now I have these platforms, but I have some of them, and I have them because, sometimes it happens that somebody wants to show me something, or I need to be logged in to see something, or, so I use them mindfully. So I look at like specific things that I want to look at. I don't like to browse, these things anymore. I just browse like YouTube and stuff like that, but I don't like to browse these other things anymore, because I feel like I've moved on energetically, in the sense that I know that I'm going to get overwhelmed, and I don't like the feeling that I get from these things, and I don't want to be a contributing factor for anybody else feeling like that either, if my contributions are maybe causing that to other people as well, which they have done in the past, I think, or potentially. So I have these accounts to kind of just make sure that like I'm able to see things if I want to see something very specific. And I think it is important to be mindful of these things. If you're aware of the fact that like if you are a very sensitive person, or you get overwhelmed, like there is a way of using social media and approaching social media in a way that you don't get as overwhelmed or overwhelmed at all. Because if you make sure you're very mindful about which accounts you follow, and maybe set a certain limit for yourself. Personally, I've never kind of done that for myself. I've never like had like a limit of like, okay, I'm going to only be on social media for like 20 minutes every day or something like that. But you can do that. And I think the point is that like, it's so much better for your mental health and your energy levels, to be very mindful about how you approach it. If you're aware of this in yourself, that you are sensitive, because if you're just scrolling mindlessly, like we've heard this so many times, so I don't need to like teach people about this, but like we know that social media and scrolling social media mindlessly can have really bad effects. And I think there's also this thing of, feeling like you're missing out and things like that. But I think social media is kind of offering, this era of social media sort of offering us a challenge, in the sense that we have to be more mindful. Like it's a challenge to be mindful, and it's a challenge to be selective, which I think a lot of people are not doing. They're not being selective about what they follow. They're not being selective about what they, how they approach it. But that's just my thoughts on it. I think that we should be, if we're sensitive, we should be mindful and selective about how we approach it. So, choose what accounts you follow very carefully, and be more selective about what you look at. Like I, for example, I go on these things when I want to check out something specific. Like I want to ask someone something, or I want to look at something in particular. I don't feel the need anymore at this point in my life. Like I just don't feel the need anymore to be flooded and to actively allow myself to be flooded by this information, just by going on these platforms and looking through everything that I see, because most of it is not going to be things that I really care about that much, right? So I think it's better for me and for a lot of people to look at very specific things. If you want to look at something specifically, just look at those things. You don't need to like look at everything that is flooded into your consciousness just by being there. You don't need to go towards it. You can be more selective about it. And I think, I don't like want to preach about these things too much, because I think we've heard about these things so many times nowadays. Like there's so many people kind of talking about this and the influence that, social media has had over the past few years now. But I just wanted to kind of share some of my thoughts about it. That being mindful about something that is potentially going to cause certain feelings that you don't want to have is important to be mindful, because like it took me a while to kind of recognize, first of all, that I was sensitive in this way, and then it also took me a while to kind of wean off this kind of scrolling, this kind of passive scrolling, which I do still do occasionally, I won't lie, but I get bored very quickly about it, so I don't continue for very long, and I like it that way. And there is a sense of, missing, out certain, in terms of like certain information. I don't see everything that everybody is like looking at, but you can't see everything anyway, right? So there's always going to be something that you miss out on. And I think it's just about recognizing, and I think as you get older, you kind of start being more mindful about this, like recognizing what you actually want to consume and not just consume whatever is there to be consumed. Like you can just consume what is going to be positive for you or interesting for you, or something that like you want to know about something specific, and then you can go and look it up. It's not so important to just look at what everybody else is looking at. I think like it's, at some point I had to, and I know a lot of people probably have to like make a choice about, well, what's more important? Is it more important to like fit in and be part of this group of people that, or like this bubble that is looking at these kinds of things? Or is it more important for me to actually do things that feel good to me, and where I'm a healthy person and I can show up in a healthier way in life for others as well? And like, what do I actually want to look at? What do I actually want to be involved with? Like, what's more important? Is my mental health important to me? Is my, taking care of my own energy important to me? Or is it more important to kind of make sure that I don't miss anything and that I'm always on the loop? And I think also, with these things, you do kind of find out the things that you need to find out, or the things that are important for you in that moment or in that time for you to find out. Because it's like with the news as well. It's like you don't necessarily have to always be reading the news to kind of find everything out. Because, I read news. I don't do it every day, but I do read it, but I'm very selective with that as well. And this isn't specifically about news, this recording, but I'm very selective with that as well, in that I very carefully choose what I look at. And the same thing can be done with social media. But anyway, before I ramble on too much, I'm going to say thank you for listening. And if you appreciated this, do leave a like and subscribe if you want more thoughts from me. Thanks.